Order, order. Questions the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. For Waugh.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. May I take this opportunity to pay tribute to the work that rugby league clubs do across the country and to my own team, Wigan Warriors, who absolutely smashed Warrington Wolves in Las Vegas last month. Rugby league clubs... No comment. Rugby league clubs are at the heart of many communities, including his in Rochdale, and I was delighted that in the last financial year, Sport England awarded over £30,000 to his constituency to support grassroots rugby league.
Mr Speaker, Rochdale Hornets have had a winning start to their league season, a spicy performance no doubt linked to our new partnership with Nando's restaurants. Mr Speaker, if you get a Rochdale Hornets season ticket, you can get 20% off on Rochdale Nando's. Ours is a true community club with its work off the pitch as important as it is the results on it. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that we should be promoting rugby league not just as great entertainment but as a brilliant way to help our nation's mental and physical health?
I couldn't agree with him more. Rugby league clubs have the ability to reach where others can't. This week I was delighted to convene a round table with the Prime Minister to discuss the issues raised by the TV series Adolescence, and particularly the impact of mental health and isolation on young men. We're working with rugby league clubs to see what more we can do to support young men's mental health in coalfield communities, and I'll be in a position to announce more to the House shortly.
The Secretary of State and indeed the member for Rochdale are both right to praise the important work that rugby league and indeed rugby union clubs do in their community. What steps is she taking to better balance that with the Public Accounts Committee cross-party criticism of the way her department is managing its COVID loan book?
Well, this Labour government will always protect value for money, for taxpayers' money, and we are determined to grip the issues that we inherited. We've already recovered 97% of the repayments that are scheduled to the department, and we will respond to the very serious issues raised about the handling of COVID loans in the Public Accounts Committee report shortly, and I'll be in a position to update the House.
I'm just going to call the Shadow Minister. I'm not sure whether he should declare an interest as a former apprentice of London Broncos, Louie French.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Happy to declare it. We lost a lot of games back then, but yeah. The return of the Ashes is welcome news for rugby league, but whilst the next generation will be inspired by the series, the Labour government has dropped the ball. Encouraging grassroots participation is key to the future of all sports and community clubs across the country. But Labour has cut the £57 million Opening Schools Facilities Fund, £1 million of investment in multi-sports grassroots facilities, and ended the £25 million Lionesses Future Fund that invested in facilities to support women and girls' sport. But arguably the biggest own goal, Mr Speaker, for grassroots sports is the removal of planning protections for sports pitches across England. So I asked the Secretary of State for Sport, why is it only the Conservatives that will protect grassroots clubs and the sports pitches that Labour want to concrete over?
The party opposite can't have it both ways. On the one hand, they want to see economic growth. On the other hand, they're not prepared to take the necessary steps in order to achieve it. The truth is that this government takes grassroots sport incredibly seriously. I'm really proud that Sport England is able to provide financial support to clubs across the country through the £160 million movement fund to support up to £15,000 for grassroots sport. And I have to say to the Minister, it does take some brass neck to stand at this dispatch box and lecture this government in light of the mess that his government left to us.
Sir John Whittingdale.
Number 3, sir.
Number 2, Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Our creative industries lead the world, and this is the top priority for them, and I am clear that if it matters to them, it matters to us, and we're determined to get it right. Since I was appointed, I've discussed this with representatives across music, publishing, film, TV, fashion and gaming. The Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology and I will shortly convene further roundtables to work with industry across AI and the creative industries in order to strike the right balance and to grip this issue.
Sir John Whittingdale.
The Secretary of State will be aware of suggestions that the government may offer concessions around AI regulation in a deal to reduce US tariffs. Can she assure the creative and the news media sectors that any negotiations will not include an offer to weaken our copyright framework, which would be opposed by creative industries both in the UK and in the US?
Our creatives are second to none in the world, as I just said, and our copyright framework is an essential part of their success. We've been clear that if it doesn't work for creatives, then it doesn't work for us, and we won't do it. The Prime Minister has been clear in terms of negotiations with the United States that this is the start of the process, but we will always work in the national interest, and we're considering all steps as we look to the future.
Joe Powell.
Three, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the questions have moved. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer questions 3 and 11 together. This government has introduced a landmark statutory gambling levy. It will be charged to gambling operators to fund the research, prevention and treatment of gambling harm. The levy will come into effect next week and will raise around £100 million every year. We're also introducing stake limits in coming weeks for online slot games, which are associated with a higher risk of harm for the first time. We know that gambling brings joy to many, but for those for whom it poses a problem, we're determined to offer all the support that they need.
Joe Powell.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with the family of Luke, a devoted husband, father of 2 and passionate Leicester City fan. Luke developed a gambling addiction in 2018, and though he self-excluded and repaid debts with his wife's support, he relapsed during the pandemic and in 2021 tragically took his own life, with the inquest finding his gambling disorder contributed to his death, that Betfair failed to act and issuing a prevention of future deaths report to Betfair, DCMS and the Gambling Commission. Can I ask the Secretary of State, in light of this tragic case and calls today from over 30 local government and council leaders for reform on betting shops, will she set out what action the government is taking to restrict gambling advertising and better protect people like Luke from gambling harms?
Can I thank you very much, not just for raising this serious issue, but for the sensitive way in which he's approached this. And can I extend my sincere condolences to his constituents' family, who I believe are here today. I'm so sorry to hear about their loss. We believe as a government that advertising should be socially responsible. The Minister for Gambling has set the gambling industry a clear task to further raise standards to ensure that levels of gambling advertising do not exacerbate harm, and we will continue to review the evidence, including the very tragic case that he talks about today, to make sure that we get this right.
Naushabah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A report by the Gambling Commission released in November 2024 showed that the proportion of young people between the ages of 11 and 17 experiencing problem gambling increased by 114% in just 1 year. Will the Secretary of State please outline the steps her department is taking to prevent young people from becoming victims of problem gambling?
Well, can I thank her for that question? I share her view that there is clear evidence that there are particular problems for young people, and I know this is something she's been very active on in her own constituency. The online slot stake limit will come into force on the 9th of April for the £5 limit and 21st of May for the £2 limit for younger adults. This is a key harm reduction measure and a targeted intervention to those most at risk of harmful gambling.
Right, well,
thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister for Civil Society, I know, knows about the fantastic work that Gordon Moody do at their Dudley Treatment Centre to help people rebuild their lives from gambling-related harm. But the Secretary of State may not know that Gordon Moody face having to suspend their residential treatment because of the government's dithering over how to distribute funds from the gambling levy. Will the Secretary of State now finally get a grip before other fantastic charities with expertise like Gordon Moody have to shut their doors?
Well, look, can I thank him for raising this? We're absolutely clear that we don't want any gaps in funding. The Minister for Civil Society and the Minister for Gambling, who sits in the other place, have met with representatives of industry. We're working hard to make sure that we resolve this.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Secretary of State agree that there is a world of difference between betting on sport, which employs many thousands and brings joy to millions, and gaming, which is all about pure chance and requires no skill or knowledge at all? And will she commit to treating the two very differently in regulation and increasing the difference between them in the tax system?
I'm not sure that I would share that blunt characterisation, but I do very much recognise that there are different forms of gambling that we need to treat differently. In particular, members of this House have raised concerns about the impacts of reforms on land-based gambling, and we are working hard to bring forward a package of measures this summer in order to support land-based gambling in our coastal towns and in places around the country where it brings enormous joy to people. Forms of gambling like bingo, for example, which we all want to see protected and we all want to see thrive.
Seamus Logan.
Question number 4, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We believe the current list of events works well and strikes an appropriate balance between access and allowing sports to maximise broadcasting revenue. The Government has no plans to review the list at this time.
Seamus Logan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The BBC has secured an exclusive contract to broadcast live all of Scotland's men's international football matches in the run-up to the 2026 World Cup. It's part of a wider deal agreed with the European governing body UEFA that also includes matches for Northern Ireland and Wales. On Friday night, the BBC will provide extensive live coverage on several platforms of the Scotland women's team playing Germany in the Nations League at Tannadice Stadium in Dundee. And I'm sure the Minister will join me in wishing them well. But will the Minister also consider taking steps to safeguard these events for free-to-air broadcasters so that our nations can enjoy them without paying expensive subscriptions?
Well, I will join him in wishing him well. As I outlined in my first answer, the whole point of the regime is to strike a balance. We want sport to be accessible while recognising the importance that broadcasting revenue plays.
Lewis Atkinson.
Number 5, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I want every child to have a chance to learn how to play a musical instrument or take part in music, and I want every musician to be able to make a living out of their career. I'm working on better support for small venues across the UK and better remuneration for legacy artists, for songwriters and for session musicians.
Lewis Atkinson.
Thank you. Sunderland is a music city, and key to that are our great grassroots venues like the Bunker, Independent and Pop Rex. But venues like those across the country operate on a very financially precarious basis. So could the Minister update the House on how he will monitor the implementation of the voluntary levy on arena and stadium gigs so it can rapidly provide financial support to venues like those in my constituency?
The Bunker looks absolutely amazing. It's a not-for-profit organisation, apart from anything else, which gives young people and others an opportunity to learn how to play, to perform and to record. And that's precisely the kind of venue that we want to be able to support, which is why I'm determined to get this voluntary levy over the line as soon as possible so that we can put millions of pounds into small venues. The last time I was in Sunderland was for Pink at the Stadium of Light, and perhaps a line from her is helpful. What happened to all the plans that ended in disaster? I'm determined that that's not going to be one of them.
In which case, Pete Wishart.
Mr Speaker, for the first time since 2003, no UK artist has made it into the world top 10 album or singles charts. Now, this is partly down to effectively closing the EU to touring artists, where followings can't get built and remuneration can be made for artists. You promised to fix it. When are we going to get our artists back into Europe?
He makes a really good point. I mean, obviously, we need some more songs from Runrig to get us back into at the top of the charts. No, serious point. It's absolutely essential, in particular for new and emerging artists, that they have that opportunity to tour across the whole of Europe. I'm determined to get this over the line. It's one of the things that we need to renegotiate with the European Union. We've got a key meeting coming up in the next few weeks, and I hope we'll be able to make some progress.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Music fans were left outraged last summer by the rip-offs of Oasis tickets. Many of them paid hundreds of pounds over resale value to get the access to the concerts that they wanted to get to as dedicated fans. Now, Liberal Democrats are calling for an outright ban on resales above face value. Now, at the moment, it seems the government's half the world away from a solution. And when the ministers answer, whatever they say, please promise me the answer to whether we'll have a ban above resale value is not definitely maybe.
Well, as he perfectly well knows, there's a consultation which is ongoing at the moment and closes on the 4th of April. It was a manifesto commitment of ours that we want to make sure that the secondary ticket market works for everybody. If you aren't able to turn up to a gig for whatever reason, family reason or a funeral or whatever, then you should be able to sell the ticket on. We've asked specifically whether you should only be able to sell it at face value or face value plus 10%, 20%, 30%. I note his response to the consultation. I hope that he's responded to all the other issues in the consultation as well.
Martin Rhodes.
Question number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you. My department is in regular contact with the organising company, and I was pleased to meet recently with both the CEO and the Chair to discuss progress on delivery, both at a meeting in my department and when I was delighted to attend the King's Baton Relay launch at Buckingham Palace with His Majesty the King to mark 500 days until the Games. The UK has been proud to host the Commonwealth Games twice since 2014, and I'm delighted the UK Government has been able to get behind and support Glasgow 2026.
Martin Rhodes.
I thank the Minister for her response. Does she agree that it's important that the Games bring benefits to local communities? What discussion is she having with colleagues in the Scotland Office, the Scottish Government, Glasgow City Council, to ensure that local communities in Glasgow benefit from the Games in 2026?
Well, thank you. I, of course, agree with my honourable friend that it is important that a successful game supports lasting benefits to the city and the region. As I said, I have met with the CEO and Chair 2 weeks ago. I was in Edinburgh to meet with my counterpart in the Scottish Government to discuss the Games. My team is in close contact with the Scottish Government, the Scotland Office and other delivery partners to understand the Games' ambitions for these wider benefits. The organising company has already confirmed the Games will include £6 million of investment into existing sporting venues, as well as 3,000 trained volunteers and a cultural programme.
Joe Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will know the springboard that hosting international events has for the economy, for grassroots participation and for sporting facilities in the UK. Under the last government, we secured and hosted a number of major events, including a pipeline of events. What steps is this government taking to ensure we have that pipeline of major events into the future?
Well, he's absolutely right to pay tribute to the economic contribution, the huge inspiration. We know we've got a number of exciting events coming up, whether that be rugby and cricket, and the government is hugely supportive of going forward with major events.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Number 7, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Britain, as everybody will have noted, is an island nation, and so our coastline is an absolutely a vital part of what defines us as a visitor destination. I'm really glad that the Starring Great Britain campaign, which we launched earlier this year, features many coastal areas, but we do need to make sure that people get an opportunity to see our amazing beaches, eat our amazing food, and enjoy the perfectly sensible summer weather that we have.
Jenny Riddle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for his answer. The tourism industry in East Suffolk is worth an estimated £693 million and accounts for over 15% of jobs locally. But we have suffered post-pandemic. Estimates suggest that we are down 2 million pre-pandemic levels, and I imagine actually that's just the tip of the iceberg. Can the Minister share with me what he is doing to support coastal tourism in places like Southwold, Aldborough and Felixstowe? Thank you.
Well, one of the things I'm very keen to do is to try to integrate far better into our visitor economy the creative industries, because she will know in her own patch it's not just the Aldborough Festival, which has been going since 1948. She's got Maggie Hambling living down the road in Saxmundham. There's a very lively artistic community, and I think we need to build that far more into what we offer in our coastal offer around the country. But I want us to get to 50 million international visitors to the UK by 2030. We'll only be able to do that if more of them don't just visit London.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for that answer. And when we had the debate in Westminster Hall just last week, the Minister was very quick to respond to ensuring that tourism across the whole of this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland can take advantage. He will know the advantages of tourism, of course, in Strangford. He will know the Strangford Loch, he will know the Ards Peninsula and the Irish Sea. The Shadow Minister sitting down here knows it very well. He didn't do wild water swimming on the day he was over, but he wished he could have. But there are many things to attract tourism wherever we are. Can I just ask the Minister very gently, those discussions to improve the coastal tourism for the United Kingdom can also include Northern Ireland, because we can do it better together. Thank you.
I think it's a bit shameful to accuse the poor Shadow Minister of wimping out on the cold water swimming. I'm sure he'd have been there if it had been available. I'm not sure that's quite the word that the member would like to address. Anyway, I'm very keen that we have a national tourism strategy for the whole of this country by the end of this year. I'm working with the Visitor Economy Council to deliver that. That has to address the problems that many of our coastal areas have featured, and including in Northern Ireland. And again, the point about creative industries in Northern Ireland being vital to the tourist economy is made.
Shadow Minister, Secretary Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As has already been said, tourism is a huge contributor to the UK economy, and I was delighted to take part in English Tourism Week, as I know many members will have done. The government has committed to 50 million visits by 2030. We, on this side of the House, welcome that ambition. But I was surprised to hear from the tourism sector that there is great concern about a purported cut to the Visit Britain budget. So can the Minister categorically tell this House whether or not there will be a cut to the Visit Britain budget, and if so, can he transparently tell the House how much the Visit Britain budget will be cut by?
I think he's talking about the Great campaign budget, and finances have been very, very tough. That is certainly true, and we're looking at precisely what money we may be able to source into that fund for the next year. But look, I'm very serious about wanting to develop a UK-wide visitor economy strategy. I think it might be valuable if he and I sat down at some point and he gave me some of the ideas that are rocking around in his brain, and we'll see whether any of those can be incorporated into our plan.
So David Davis.
Number 8, sir.
Well, not only are we an island economy, but also I would argue that our towns and villages are just as important for our visitor economy as our great cities. And I recently myself spent a very pleasant weekend in Chipping Camden. Many international visitors were wandering up and down Broadway, and he's got some extraordinarily beautiful villages in his constituency as well, which I suspect he's about to tell us about, Mr. Speaker.
So, David.
Well, since we're swapping villages, I was in Pocklington last week. The site of what Professor Alice Roberts described as one of the most important, archaeological Iron Age archaeology in Britain, the Pocklington Chariot Burial, a magnificent thing, and the centre of a huge area of Iron Age archaeology. I was there seeing local volunteers, dedicated local volunteers, who are creating a new museum at Burnby Hall based on this archaeology, which will bring tourists into the countryside. What can the government do to help people like that develop ideas like this?
Not every village in Britain suffers the problems of midsummer, but I know of the work that they're trying to do in Pocklington, and it is, as he says, he refers to Professor Alice Roberts and her wonderful work in this area. Everything I have seen about the hoard in Pocklington is absolutely amazing. I slightly expected that he would turn up wearing some of the bling or the armour, because there was a time when it was fine for a man to wear a brooch, and perhaps that time will come again. But I do want to pay tribute to Burnbury Gardens and Museums. It would be amazing if we were able to get that back into full use. The gardens are amazing, apparently 80 different kinds of wild water lilies, but it'd be good if we could get the whole museum going, and I pay tribute to the volunteers who are trying to make that happen.
Melanie Ward.
Question number 10, please, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry? Well, Mr. Desmond. How dare I?
Number 9, sir.
We might get to you at this rate.
A large proportion of the creative industries, as he knows, are constituted as SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, and most of those, the vast majority of those, are protected from the national insurance contributions increase. But what is important, of course, that, as many of them have said to me, is that they fully understand the need for greater expenditure on our public services has to be matched by finding the money from somewhere.
I've always been particularly impressed by your brooch, Mr. Speaker. Nevertheless, they're very damaging for any enterprises. But you can make it up to them by restoring Baroness Beban-Kindren's amendment to the data bill. Will he do it?
No, we've just taken it out of the bill for very precise reasons, which is that we don't think that they would make the blindest bit of difference to the financial support provided to creative industries today. That's why we're not supporting them.
Melanie Ward.
Number 10, please, Mr Speaker.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer questions 10, 13, 15 and 16 together. The Government is clear that people should be able to access to sport and physical activity when they want, no matter who they are and where they are in the country. That's why we recently announced a further £100 million of investment across the UK for the coming year to ensure better access to high-quality facilities.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Kirkcaldy Community Football Partnership does an amazing job providing a home for 18 teams and bringing young people into our national game, including from some of the most deprived parts of our town. But facilities at Denfield Park are too often unusable due to waterlogging on the grass pitch. They badly need a new synthetic pitch and are seeking funding for this as part of our Labour Government's investment in grassroots sport in Scotland. I'm meeting the SFA about this next week. Will the Minister support our funding bid, and will she join me in encouraging the Secretary of State to accept my invitation to come to visit our pitch in Kirkcaldy and see the need for herself?
Well, I absolutely will. The Secretary of State says she will, and of course we were both in Scotland a few weeks ago. Firstly, please pass on my thanks to the volunteers at the Kirkcaldy Community Football Partnership for their valuable work. I recognise the issues that she puts forward, and through the Scottish Football Association we'll be investing £8.6 million for our multi-sports grassroots programme, and I'm pleased that she will be meeting them soon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Certain sports often remain inaccessible to women and girls early on, making it harder to join later. Can the Minister confirm how her department is supporting clubs like Chess Valley RFC in my constituency of South West Hertfordshire, which promote women's participation at all levels?
He raises a really important point. I visited Loughborough University a few weeks ago at the launch of their Women's Innovation Hub. I've convened the Women's Sports Task Force along with Karen Carney. We're really clear that we want to support women's sport at every level.
Under Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My constituency of Shipley is not short of sporting talent. Baildon's Physical Sports Coaching Academy under-8s team have just won the National Premier League final for the second consecutive season. I'd also like to pay tribute to the Bumblebees Barbarians, the first mixed ability contact rugby union team in England, which plays at the Bradford and Bingley Sports Club. Following the Government's welcome announcement of £100 million investment in grassroots sports, can the Minister assure me that inclusive grassroots sport will receive funding to continue their great work?
Well, of course, my congratulations to the teams that she mentions. Grassroots clubs do such an important job nurturing sporting talent. The brilliant sporting facilities across the country receive funding, targeting the most deprived areas, supporting underrepresented groups and providing the multi-sport benefit through the Football Foundation. And they obviously deliver that through their local football facilities plans, which are in the process of being refreshed to reflect changes such as the growth of the women's game and needs in other sports.
Mr Speaker, rugby union is sadly a sport on its knees in this country, propped up solely by the Six Nations and with top-flight clubs going to the wall despite a ring-fenced Premiership cartel. Mismanagement of the game has become endemic. The RFU sustained losses of £38 million last year, yet still found the cash to provide a total remuneration package of £1.1 million to Bill Sweeney, who has presided over the current shambles. Though he survived vote of no confidence at the special general meeting of the RFU at Twickenham last week, forced by the whole game union, the RFU is desperately trying to restore credibility with the grassroots game. So what oversight is the government providing of the management of rugby union in England, the implementation of the forthcoming modernisation programme and the 6-point plan for community rugby, and what support can they give to beleaguered grassroots clubs, clubs who are the lifeblood of the game and create our future internationals, players like George Furbank, who started his career at Huntingdon Stags?
Please, Minister.
The Honourable Member raises some really important points. We had a debate in Westminster Hall on this very recently. Of course, we want rugby to sort the issues out for themselves, but we really do appreciate the seriousness of them, and myself and the Secretary of State do meet regularly with them.
Question 12, Mr Speaker.
Thank you. We're aware of the importance of video game sector to the UK as a whole and the brilliance of Warrington in leading the world, not just in video games, but in nuclear and in the sheer number of roundabouts that her constituency is home to. We're committed to working with her and others to make sure that we continue to support the video game sector for many years to come.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and the Secretary of State will also know that we produce a fifth of the world's gin in Warrington. On to the UK video games industry, however, it is a huge success story, supporting 73,000 jobs, including in Warrington with companies like 1010, Mindware, Freesphere Entertainment and Second Impact Games, and contributing more to UK GVA than the film and music industries combined. To strengthen UK gaming's global competitiveness, and particularly in the context of the announcements from the US last night, could
I ask the Secretary of State what consideration she's given to enhancing the video games expenditure credit?
Secretary of
The video games expenditure credit has been incredibly important for us, and we were pleased to announce £5.5 million for the UK Games Fund next year. As somebody in this House who's probably put in more hours on Animal Crossing than any other member of the House, I am aware of the joy that video games bring to many people in this country. The Prime Minister is obviously working to support industries that have been affected by recent announcements from the United States, but we're making sure that video games are absolutely at the heart of that, including putting them at the heart of a new creative industries sector plan, which will be published in the coming month.
We come to topical, Sarah Smith.
This Labour government is wasting no time delivering for communities across the country. Since we last met, I was delighted to announce £100 million for grassroots sports facilities and launch the 2027 Tour de France with my honourable friend in Edinburgh. The Football Governance Bill has completed all its stages in the other place. Tomorrow, our consultation on ticket touts closes and our message is clear: their time is up. We promised the biggest ever conversation with young people, and I am delighted to tell the House that we have already surpassed 11,000 responses to our National Youth Strategy consultation, and I know that the whole House will want to join me and my honourable friends next month in marking the 80th anniversary of VE Day to honour all of those who fought so hard for the freedoms that we enjoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Access to arts and culture can help to break down barriers to opportunity in areas like mine in Hyndburn and Haslingden. Sadly, our much-loved Oswald Twistle Civic Theatre closed in 2023 and had to be placed on the Theatres at Risk register. I've welcomed the recent grants awarded by the Theatres Trust and Hyndburn Borough Council, but will the Minister meet with me to see how the Government could help secure the future of this much-loved and important community asset?
I'd be more than happy to meet with her, and I know that there's a lot of work that has been gone into trying to get this back up and get actors back on the stage and audiences back in there. So I hope we can arrange a meeting as soon as possible.
Secretary of State Stuart Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I first of all congratulate Newcastle United on their amazing win at the Carabao Cup final, but also can I share her remarks about the 80th anniversary, and we all hope that the ceremonies around the country will be enjoyed by everybody. In just 3 days, national insurance bills will be falling on the doormats of charities across the country, and they will now have to find another £1.4 billion to pay for Labour's job tax. Now, whilst it's right the government have provided compensation to the police and local authorities, etc., why have charities who provide support to the most vulnerable been left out?
Providing support to charities, and he will know that we have more than doubled the employment allowance to protect the smallest charities and business. More than half of those with national insurance contribution liabilities will either be better off or see no change next year. And I have to say to him that he will know there is a reason why we've had to make difficult choices. His party had 14 years in power. They crashed the economy. They left charities in an appalling position, not just with the economic mess that we find ourselves in, but also with far more people to support. That's why we're launching the Civil Society Covenant to reset our relationship with charities and put them at the heart of national life where they belong.
Stuart Andrew.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we supported charities through the pandemic with millions and millions of pounds and with the cost of living fund of £100 million. And month after month, we have urged her to tell the Chancellor that this policy is wrong and will do irreversible harm. We're now hearing that one charity a day is closing because of government decisions. How many will have to close before the government acknowledges they've made a terrible mistake?
I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, this is just an absolute rewriting of history. I'm old enough to remember their charities minister telling charities on his first day in the job that they ought to stick to their knitting. This government is determined to treat charities with the respect that they are owed. That's why we've established the Civil Society Covenant. That's why my honourable friend meets with the charity sector regularly, and that's why we've taken action to protect the smallest charities.
Whereas, Mr Speaker, cultural spaces across our nation that rely on funding through the Arts Council, such as the Ladder in my Campbell, Madruth and Hale constituency, have been dismayed to see a second delay to the new cycle of national portfolio investment. As this investment is fundamental to the income stream and stability for cultural activities, what assessment has the Secretary of State made of stable long-term commitment to funding of prospective national portfolio organisations that have now been affected by 2 years of delays?
I understand the disappointment there is for some people who want to get into the package, as it were, including, of course, he's got 3 organisations in his constituency which will receive something in the region of £500,000 this year under the national portfolio system. But the problem we've got is that, first of all, we're in the middle of a spending review which will affect the next 4 years, and on top of that, we're doing a review of the Arts Council. It seems to us to make and we need to have profound change in the Arts Council so that it really works for arts organisations up and down the country, and that's what we're going to do.
Hello, Maldon.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Market Drayton in my constituency has really poor grassroots sports facilities for a town that serves more than 12,500 people. Shropshire's Conservatives won't allocate any of the sole money from the significant recent development there to improving the facilities. So would the Secretary of State meet with me to discuss how we can get proper funding in to provide Market Drayton, Shropshire's third largest town, with the sports facilities it deserves?
I'm sorry to hear that she's not receiving the support that she needs, but we're absolutely determined to provide it to her and any other member of this House that is a champion of grassroots sports facilities. I know that sites in Market Drayton have been awarded grants totalling over £6,000 through the Multi-Sport Grassroots Facilities programme, but we're also very aware that there are huge numbers of people, particularly young people, who want to get involved in sports, and we will work with her to make that a reality.
Mr Speaker, grassroots football clubs like Bexley Scott FC are inspiring the next generation of girls and boys to take up the beautiful game. When I visited them last month, they told me that securing funding for modern sports facilities was their top priority, but that engaging with the Football Association was incredibly challenging. So can the Minister set out what steps she is taking to work with the FA at the local and national level?
I'm very grateful. Our investment through the Multi-Sports Grassroots Facilities Programme is delivered through the Football Foundation in England. They engage with local football association and community stakeholders to identify needs in each area. So I'd encourage clubs like Bexley Scott FC to approach the Football Foundation directly to explore potential funding opportunities, and I'm very happy to set up a meeting for the Honourable Member.
The Select Committee, Dame Caroline Downey.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. As the Select Committee looks into school and community sports, we've learned that the previous government's Opening Schools Facilities Fund helped deliver sport to 300,000 people outside of school hours, seeing more girls, more disadvantaged pupils and more of those with special educational needs taking part. This fund ended on Monday. I've already heard from 2 schools in my Gosport constituency that they will be scaling back their community provision. The government talks a lot about the importance of communities and supporting young people. This flies in the face of it, doesn't it?
Well, can I thank her for raising that, and I'll certainly look into that specific fund that she mentioned. The Education Secretary and I are committed to putting sport back at the heart of the curriculum and at the heart of our classrooms. We'll be in a position to announce more about that shortly, but we share her vision for schools that are at the hub of their community, that are open longer hours to be able to provide those opportunities for young people.
Josh Newbley.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My constituent Paul Dodge was iconically photographed rescuing a badly burned survivor of the 7/7 bombings, and the thanks Paul got, his phone was hacked by a newspaper looking for stories. 12 years on for the Leveson inquiry, most national papers are still in ipso, a complaints handler they control, which has never investigated nor fined a single newspaper in its history. Can I ask the Secretary of State if she'll consult on introducing a truly independent press regulator for all national papers so we can make sure there are no more victims of phone hacking and press intrusion?
Can I thank him for raising this very serious issue? He will know that since Leveson concluded, there have been dramatic changes in the media landscape, which mean that we need to take a much wider view about how to protect a free and fair and self-regulated press and to protect the public. Nevertheless, we recognise that there are long-standing issues about the protection of members of the public, like his constituent, who my honourable friend knows well. I recently met with families from the campaign group Hacked Off. It was a harrowing meeting, listening to their stories, and we are committed to working with them to resolve these issues.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I should properly declare an interest as a full member of British Actors Equity. Mr Speaker, if I enter your house and I seal the draft manuscript of your memoirs. I'm guilty of a crime. Artists, writers, musicians, and other creatives are all having their work stolen as we speak, and you and I, Mr. Speaker, have had letters about this. We don't have the time to wait. What is the government going to do to protect creatives and their work?
Copyright law stands firmly behind creative industries today and will for the future. We will do absolutely nothing to undermine the fact that this country is a truly great, one of the few great countries in the world that is able to boast of itself as a content superpower. And anything that we do in relation to AI and copyright will only proceed if we can make sure that there is more control and more remuneration for the creative industries at the end of it, rather than less.
Final question, Jim Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the National Youth Survey launched last month that was mentioned by the Secretary of State. It's great to see a government that's not only listening to young people, but is determined to put young voices at the heart of policy making. In Dartford, we have a rapidly growing youth population, with the number of under-15s growing by 30% in the last census. Would the Secretary of State agree that it's vital that policies that affect young people are produced with the people that are affected by them? And will she consider attending my youth engagement event in Dartford later this month?
Can I thank him for that kind invitation, and my honourable friend, the Minister for Young People, would be delighted to if she can make that work with her existing commitments. Can I just share his view that we're not just interested as a government in young people having a voice, we want them to have real power to be in the driving seat of their own lives. That is why we've established Young People to co-produce the National Youth Strategy with us, and I am absolutely delighted that we've already made good on our promise of the biggest ever conversation with this generation that has ever taken place.